In the harsh wilderness of 1870s New Mexico territory, a lone Apache warrior named Takoda, 35 years old, lives as an outcast, rejected by both his own people and the white settlers who fear and despise him. Scarred by a brutal past and carrying the weight of a tragedy no one knows, Takoda has become a ghost wandering the borderlands, hated and avoided by everyone who crosses his path, when a devastating cholera outbreak sweeps through the nearby settlement of Redemption Creek. A young orphan girl named Lily Morgan, 10 years old, loses everything: her parents, her home, and any hope of kindness in a world that has turned cruel. Cast out by the townspeople who blame her family for bringing the disease, Lily finds herself alone and starving in the unforgiving desert. Their paths collide when Lily, on the brink of death, stumbles upon Takoda's hidden camp. Where others see a savage, she sees something different, a flicker of humanity in his dark eyes, a gentleness in his calloused hands. Against all odds and against his own hardened heart, Takoda takes her in. What begins as reluctant shelter transforms into an unlikely bond that will challenge everything both have known about trust, family, and redemption. But the past has a way of catching up, and the secrets Takoda carries will soon threaten not just their fragile connection, but their very lives. This is a story of two lost souls finding each other in the loneliest corners of the Old West, where hatred runs deep, but love, true, unconditional love, runs deeper still. The sun beat down mercilessly on the New Mexico desert, turning the red rocks into furnaces and the sand into something that could burn through the soles of a man's boots. It was the kind of heat that made even the buzzards think twice about flying, the kind that drove men mad if they stayed out in it too long. Takoda didn't mind it. He sat motionless on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley below, his long black hair tied back with a strip of worn leather, his face weathered and marked by a jagged scar that ran from his left temple down to his jaw. His clothes were a mixture of Apache tradition and necessity: buckskin pants, a faded cotton shirt he'd traded for 2 years ago, and moccasins that had seen better days. At 35, he looked older. The kind of aging that came not from years, but from carrying too much weight on your shoulders. Below him, maybe 3 miles out, he could see the settlement of Redemption Creek. From this distance, it looked almost peaceful, a cluster of wooden buildings, a church steeple reaching toward heaven like it was begging for salvation. Smoke rising from chimneys even in this oppressive heat. But Takoda knew better. There was nothing peaceful about Redemption Creek, and there sure as hell was no redemption to be found there. Not for him, anyway. A rattlesnake slithered past his boot, and he didn't even flinch. The snake paused, tasted the air with its forked tongue, then continued on its way. Even the snake knew better than to bother him. Everything out here knew to leave him alone. That's how it had been for 5 years now. 5 long years since he'd been cast out, marked as cursed, blamed for things he couldn't control, and punished for things he'd never done. The Apache people, his people, had turned their backs on him after the fever came. The white settlers shot at him on sight, called him savage, demon, killer. He was caught between 2 worlds, belonging to neither, wanted by none. The ghost of the borderlands, they called him now. Some said he wasn't even real. Just a story mothers told their children to keep them from wandering too far from home. Others swore they'd seen him, a dark figure moving through the canyons like smoke, there one moment and gone the next. Let them tell their stories. Let them fear him. Fear kept them away, and away was exactly where Takoda wanted everyone to be. He rose slowly, his joints protesting slightly. Another reminder that he wasn't getting any younger. His camp was another 2 miles north, hidden in a canyon that most people didn't even know existed. It wasn't much, just a small cave with a spring nearby, but it was his. The only place in this godforsaken territory where he didn't have to watch his back every second of every day. As he made his way down the rocky slope, he thought about the supplies he'd need soon. His coffee was running low, and he was down to his last bit of salt. That meant a trip to the trading post at Miller's Crossing, 40 miles east. The old man who ran it, Jacob Miller, was half-blind and didn't ask questions as long as your money was good. It was the only place Takoda could trade without getting a rifle pointed at his face. The journey down took him through a narrow ravine where the shadows provided blessed relief from the sun. He moved silently, a habit so ingrained he didn't even think about it anymore. His father had taught him to walk without sound, to become part of the land itself. That was before everything fell apart, before the world showed its true colors. He was halfway through the ravine when he heard it, voices carried on the hot wind. White voices, rough and loud. Takoda froze, pressing himself against the rock wall, his hand instinctively moving to the knife at his belt. His old rifle was back at camp. He'd been checking rabbit snares. Hadn't expected to run into anyone out here. Telling you, Sam, there ain't nothing out this way but rocks and scorpions. A man's voice echoed through the canyon. That's what makes it perfect. Another voice responded, younger, eager. No one comes out here. We can bury it deep, and nobody's going to find it for years. Takoda's jaw tightened. Buried treasure, bodies. Out here could be either. Could be both. He'd learned long ago that white men did their worst business in places they thought no one was watching. He heard the sound of horses, the jingle of spurs, the scrape of shovels. They were close, maybe just around the next bend. Every instinct told him to slip away, to fade into the rocks like the ghost they all thought he was. Getting involved with white men never ended well. Not for him, but curiosity, that old demon that had gotten him in trouble more times than he could count, made him creep forward, silent as a shadow. He rounded the bend and found a position behind a cluster of boulders that gave him a clear view of the scene below. 3 men, all dressed like ranch hands, stood in a small clearing. 2 of them were digging while the third kept watch, a rifle cradled in his arms. Next to them, looking ridiculously out of place in this harsh landscape, was a small wooden chest, the kind wealthy folks kept their valuables in. Deeper, the one with the rifle said. He was older, maybe 50, with a thick grey beard, and the kind of mean eyes that enjoyed other people's suffering. Mr. Craddock said 6 feet, and he meant 6 feet. Man finds out we did a lazy job of this, he'll have our hides. Craddock. Takoda knew that name. Everyone in the territory knew that name. Vincent Craddock owned half the land around Redemption Creek and wanted to own the other half. He had his fingers in everything, cattle, mining, even the railroad that was supposed to come through next year. If Craddock was burying something out here, it wasn't anything legal. I still don't see why we had to come all the way out here, the younger one, Sam, complained, wiping sweat from his face. Could have buried this on Craddock land. Because you don't bury evidence where people can stumble on it, you idiot, the third man snapped. This way, if anyone ever asks questions, there's nothing to find. Now shut up and dig. Evidence. So it wasn't treasure they were burying. Takoda watched for another minute, memorizing their faces, then began to ease backward. Whatever they were up to, it wasn't his concern. He had enough problems without adding Craddock and his men to the list. He was almost clear of the rocks when his moccasin came down on a loose stone. It rolled just slightly, just enough to make a soft scraping sound that wouldn't have mattered on any normal day. But this wasn't a normal day. What was that? The man with the rifle spun around, his weapon coming up fast. Takoda cursed silently and pressed himself flat against the rock, hoping the shadows would hide him. For a long moment, nobody moved. He could hear his own heartbeat, slow and steady despite the danger. Fear was a luxury he'd learned to live without. Probably just an animal, Sam said nervously. Coyote or something. Or something, the older man agreed, his eyes scanning the rocks. Frank, go check it out. Why me? Frank whined, but he was already climbing up toward Takoda's position, his hand on the pistol at his hip. Takoda had maybe 10 seconds before Frank would be on top of him. He could kill the man. One quick movement, the knife across his throat, done before he could make a sound. But that would bring the other 2, and killing 3 of Craddock's men would put a price on his head that wouldn't go away. Not that there wasn't already a price, but this would make it official, make it big enough that every bounty hunter in the territory would be looking for him. He made his decision in a heartbeat. In one fluid motion, he pushed off from the rock face and launched himself over the edge of the ravine, sliding down the loose scree on the far side. Behind him, he heard Frank's shout of surprise. There, someone was watching us. "Get him!" the older man roared. Takoda hit the bottom of the ravine running, his feet finding purchase on terrain that would have broken another man's ankle. A rifle shot cracked through the air, the bullet sparking off a rock inches from his head. He didn't slow down, didn't look back. The ravine twisted and turned, and he knew every inch of it. Had walked it 100 times in the past 5 years. The white men didn't. He could hear them crashing through the brush behind him, cursing and shouting, their horses useless in the narrow confines of the canyon. Another shot echoed, wild and panicked. They were afraid, and afraid men made mistakes. Takoda took a hard right turn into a side canyon, so narrow his shoulders almost brushed both walls. The men's voices faded behind him, confused, arguing about which way he'd gone. He kept moving, his breathing controlled, his mind already planning his next move. He'd have to leave the territory now. If they'd seen his face, if they could identify him as Apache, Craddock would send men after him. And if they connected him to the ghost of the borderlands, to all the stories and rumors that had grown over the years, they'd come with an army. The thought filled him with a weary resignation. 5 years in one place, the longest he'd stayed anywhere since before, and now he'd have to move on again, find another canyon, another cave, another lonely stretch of nowhere to call home. The side canyon opened up into a larger valley, one that would take him north toward the mountains. He paused for just a moment listening. The sounds of pursuit had faded completely. He'd lost them for now. As he stood there in the fading afternoon light, Takoda felt the familiar weight settling back onto his shoulders. This was his life now, running, hiding, always alone. The ghost of the borderlands, wandering forever, belonging nowhere. He turned north and started walking. Behind him, Redemption Creek baked in the dying sun. And in the town, people went about their lives, never knowing how close they'd come to one of their darkest secrets being discovered. Never knowing that the man they all feared, the ghost they told stories about, had just saved them from themselves, without them ever knowing. That's how it always was with Takoda. He existed in the spaces between, noticed only when convenient, blamed for everything, credited with nothing. But somewhere in that town, on that very same evening, a young girl was taking her last breaths as a mother, preparing to leave behind a daughter who would soon need a ghost more than she could ever know. The desert wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of coming rain and the promise that everything was about to change. The town of Redemption Creek had seen its share of hardships over the years. Drought, bandits, Apache raids, back in the old days before the treaties. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared them for what rolled in on that supply wagon 3 weeks after Takoda's encounter with Craddock's men. Lily Morgan stood outside the general store, her small hand clasped tightly in her mother's as they watched the wagon pull up. At 10 years old, Lily was all knobby knees and wild brown hair that her mother constantly tried to tame into braids. She had her father's green eyes and her mother's gentle smile, though that smile had been harder to find lately, with times being so tough. "Mama, can we get peppermint sticks?" Lily asked, tugging on her mother's worn calico dress. Sarah Morgan looked down at her daughter with tired eyes. She was only 32, but looked older, the way frontier life aged women before their time. Her husband, Thomas, worked at the lumber mill from dawn to dusk, and still they barely scraped by. Peppermint sticks were a luxury they couldn't afford. "Not today, sweetheart," Sarah said softly. "Maybe next month when Papa gets paid." Lily's face fell, but she didn't argue. She was a good girl, her mother always said. Too good for this hard world. The supply wagon driver climbed down, and Lily noticed he looked pale, sweating despite the cool morning air. He stumbled slightly as his feet hit the ground, catching himself against the wagon wheel. "You all right there, Pete?" Mr. Hendricks, who owned the general store, called out. "Just tired," Pete muttered, wiping his face with a dirty handkerchief. "Long ride from Santa Fe. You got my payment ready?" Something about the way the man moved made Sarah Morgan instinctively pull Lily closer. Her mother's intuition, that sixth sense that told her when something wasn't right. But she said nothing, just steered Lily away from the wagon and into the store. That night, Pete, the wagon driver, collapsed in the saloon, burning with fever. By morning, 2 more people were sick. By the end of the week, 12 people lay dying. And the word everyone had been whispering in terror finally became official. Cholera, the town doctor. A drunk named Patterson, who'd been run out of St. Louis for incompetence, did what he could, which wasn't much. The sickness spread like wildfire through the cramped, unsanitary conditions of Redemption Creek. Water wells became contaminated. Families tried to care for their sick, and in doing so became sick themselves. Thomas Morgan was one of the first to fall. He came home from the mill complaining of stomach cramps, and by midnight he was delirious with fever. Sarah tried everything. Cool cloths, prayers, the bitter herbs the Mexican woman down the street swore would help. Nothing worked. Lily watched from the corner of their one-room cabin as her father thrashed and moaned, watched as her mother's face grew more desperate with each passing hour. She wanted to help, wanted to do something, but Sarah had ordered her to stay back, stay away. Don't touch anything Papa had touched. "Mama, is Papa gonna die?" Lily asked in a small voice. Sarah didn't answer right away. When she finally turned to look at her daughter, tears were streaming down her face. "I don't know, baby. I don't know. Thomas Morgan died 3 days later. He was buried in a mass grave on the outskirts of town with 17 others who'd succumbed to the cholera. There was no time for individual funerals, no time for proper mourning. The living were too busy trying not to become the dead. Sarah held herself together long enough to see her husband buried. She held Lily's hand and sang a hymn in a cracked voice, while the preacher rushed through a generic prayer over the bodies wrapped in sheets. Then she walked her daughter home, made her a simple dinner of beans and cornbread, and tucked her into bed. "Mama loves you," Sarah whispered, kissing Lily's forehead. "You're my brave girl, my beautiful brave girl. I love you too." "Mama," Lily said, her eyes already heavy with exhaustion. When Lily woke the next morning, her mother was lying on the floor. Her skin grey and clammy, her breathing shallow. "The cholera had her, Mama!" Lily screamed, shaking her mother's shoulder. "Mama, wake up!" Sarah's eyes fluttered open, but they were glazed, unfocused. "Lily," she breathed. "My Lily, I'll get help!" Lily cried, running for the door. But when she burst outside, calling for someone, anyone, to help her mother, she found the street nearly empty. Those few people who were out took one look at her, coming from the Morgan house, the plague house, and hurried away. "Please!" Lily ran after Mrs. Henderson, the banker's wife. "My mama's sick. Please help!" Mrs. Henderson backed away, holding up her hands. "I'm sorry, child. I can't. We have to think of our own family." She turned and practically ran down the street. Lily tried the Johnsons, the Pratts, even mean old Mr. Craddock, who owned the big house on the hill. No one would help. No one would even come near her. By the time she got back to the cabin, her mother had stopped breathing. Lily sat beside her mother's body for hours, holding her cold hand, singing the lullabies Sarah used to sing to her. She was still sitting there when Sheriff Daniels and 2 men wearing cloth masks over their faces came to collect the body. "You can't stay here." "Girl," the sheriff said gruffly, though his eyes held pity. "House needs to be burned. Town council's orders." "Stop the spread." "But this is my home," Lily whispered. "Not anymore. They took Sarah's body and added it to the wagon with 4 others. Lily was allowed to grab one small bundle of possessions. A spare dress, her mother's Bible, a carved wooden horse her father had made for her 6th birthday. Then she watched as they doused her home in kerosene and set it ablaze. Everything she'd ever known turned to ash and smoke. "What about her?" one of the masked men asked, nodding toward Lily. Sheriff Daniels frowned. "Orphanage in Santa Fe, I suppose. But we can't send her now, not until we're sure she's not carrying the sickness." "I'm not sick," Lily said quietly. "Maybe not yet. But you've been exposed. Could be you're brewing it right now." He turned to the other men. "Put her in the old barn behind the church. Bring her food and water, but nobody goes in. We'll know in a week if she's clear, and if she ain't." The man asked. The sheriff didn't answer. He didn't have to. They locked Lily in the barn, a drafty, dirty structure that smelled of old hay and mouse droppings. There was a bucket in the corner for her necessities, a pile of scratchy blankets, and nothing else. Twice a day, someone would open the door a crack and shove in a plate of food and a tin cup of water, then slam it shut again without a word. Lily spent 7 days in that barn. 7 days alone, with nothing but her thoughts and her grief. She cried until she had no tears left. She prayed until her voice was hoarse. She clutched her father's wooden horse and tried to remember what it felt like to be loved. On the 8th day, the door opened, and Sheriff Daniels stood there with Mrs. Chen. "The Chinese woman who ran the laundry. You got no fever?" Mrs. Chen asked, peering at Lily critically. Lily shook her head. Mrs. Chen stepped forward and placed a weathered hand on Lily's forehead, then checked her eyes and throat. "She clean," Mrs. Chen announced. "No sickness." "Good," the sheriff said. "Then she can leave." "Leave?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Leave to where?" The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "Well, we had a town meeting. Folks are... They're scared, girl. Your whole family died from the cholera. People think you might be cursed, or carrying something we can't see. They don't want you in Redemption Creek, but I'm not sick." She said, "I'm not sick." "I know that, and you know that, but fear don't listen to reason." He pulled out a small cloth bag and handed it to her. "There's $10 in there. It's all we could collect. You're old enough to work. Maybe you can find a family in another town that needs help, or a shop that needs a girl to sweep up." Lily stared at the bag in her hands. $10. For her whole life, her whole world, that's what she was worth. "You can't do this," she said. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew they could. They were doing it. "I'm sorry, girl." "I truly am. But you have to go." The sheriff's voice wasn't unkind, but it was final. "You head out by sundown, you understand? If you're still here come morning, I'll have to run you out myself, and I don't want to do that." They left her there in the barn. Lily sat on the dirty floor, clutching her small bundle and the bag of coins, and tried to understand how the world had become so cruel so fast. A month ago she'd had a mother and a father and a home. Now she had nothing. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that seemed to mock her misery, Lily Morgan walked out of Redemption Creek for the last time. No one came out to say goodbye. No one even looked at her as she passed. It was as if she'd already become a ghost. She walked east because that was the direction the road went, and she didn't know enough to choose any other direction. Her feet were already sore, her thin shoes not meant for traveling. The $10 felt heavy in her pocket, like 30 pieces of silver, the price of her banishment. Night fell, and with it came the cold. The desert that baked during the day turned frigid after dark. Lily had one thin blanket and no idea how to make a fire, even if she'd had the materials. She found a cluster of rocks and huddled between them, wrapping herself as tightly as she could, trying to conserve warmth. She thought about her mother's last words. "You're my brave girl." But Lily didn't feel brave. She felt small and scared and utterly alone. Above her, the stars came out in their thousands, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote howled. Lily closed her eyes and prayed for morning, prayed for mercy, prayed for anything other than this crushing loneliness. She didn't know that she was being watched. Didn't know that a figure stood on a ridge half a mile away, seeing the small form huddled in the rocks, and feeling the faint stirring of something he thought had died years ago. Curiosity, maybe, or something more dangerous. Compassion. Takoda had seen the smoke from Redemption Creek days ago. Multiple plumes, too many for cooking fires or even the normal business of a town. Something was wrong. He'd told himself it wasn't his concern. The people of Redemption Creek had made it clear years ago that they wanted nothing to do with him. The feeling was mutual. Whatever trouble they'd brought on themselves, they could handle it themselves, but the smoke kept rising day after day. And with it came rumors carried by travelers on the road. Sickness, death, bodies burning. The cholera had come to Redemption Creek, and it had come with a vengeance. Takoda had survived cholera once before, back when he was with his people. He'd been 12 years old, and the sickness had torn through their camp like a demon. His mother had died. His younger sister had died. Half the tribe had died. But he'd survived, and that survival had marked him as cursed in the eyes of some. When the fever came again 15 years later, a different sickness, but deadly all the same, and Takoda's wife and unborn child had died while he remained healthy, that settled it. He was cursed, touched by evil spirits, a danger to everyone around him. They'd driven him out with stones and curses, and he'd gone without fighting back. What was the point? They weren't wrong, were they? Everyone he loved died while he lived. Maybe he was cursed. He'd been watching the road from his usual perch when he saw the small figure leaving town. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. Surely they wouldn't send a child out alone into the desert. But as the figure got closer, there was no mistaking it. A girl, small and thin, carrying a tiny bundle and walking with the awkward, painful gait of someone whose feet were already blistering. Takoda watched her for an hour, telling himself it wasn't his problem. Children died in the West all the time. It was a hard land that didn't forgive weakness. If she couldn't survive, that was just the way of things, but he kept watching. When night fell and the girl found shelter in the rocks, Takoda climbed down from his perch. He told himself he was just going to check his snares, maybe hunt for rabbit. The fact that his path took him in the girl's direction was just coincidence. He moved through the darkness like a shadow, his feet finding purchase where others would have stumbled. The desert at night was his domain, the one place he felt almost at peace. The moonlight turned the landscape silver and black, beautiful in its harsh way. He found her huddled in the rocks, shivering despite the blanket wrapped around her thin shoulders. She was asleep or trying to be, her face streaked with dried tears. She couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. Takoda stood 20 feet away, hidden in the shadows, and felt something crack in the armor he'd built around his heart. This wasn't just any child. This was a child who'd been thrown away, cast out, left to die. Just like he'd been, he should walk away. Getting involved would only bring trouble. The girl would slow him down, and he had enough problems without adding a child to the mix. She'd probably die anyway. They usually did out here. Better to let nature take its course, but his feet wouldn't move. He stood there for a long time, watching the girl shiver, and remembered another night, many years ago, when he'd been the one cast out and alone. An old Apache warrior named Grey Wolf had found him, had taken him in when no one else would. "We are all children of the earth," Grey Wolf had said. "To turn away from one in need is to turn away from ourselves." Grey Wolf had been dead 10 years now, but his words still echoed. Takoda cursed softly in Apache, then moved forward. He'd check on her, make sure she was still breathing, maybe leave some food. That was all. Then he'd go, and whatever happened after that would be on her head, not his. He was 3 feet away when Lily's eyes snapped open. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Takoda saw green eyes wide with terror, saw the girl's mouth opening to scream. He held up both hands, showing he was unarmed, and made a soft shushing sound. "No hurt," he said in broken English. His voice was rusty from disuse, rough as gravel. "No hurt you." Lily scrambled backward, pressing herself against the rock. Her hand fumbled in her pocket and came out with a small knife, barely bigger than a butter knife, but she held it out bravely. "Stay back. I'll cut you." Despite everything, Takoda felt a flicker of respect. The girl had spirit. "You cut me with that, feel like mosquito bite," he said. "Put away. I know hurt you. You're Apache," Lily breathed, the knife wavering in her hand. "Yes, they say Apaches kill children. Some do. I not." They stared at each other in the moonlight, predator and prey, though which was which wasn't entirely clear. Finally, slowly, Lily lowered the knife. "Are you going to take me back to town?" she asked in a small voice. Takoda shook his head. "Why are you out here?" "We're family." Lily's face crumpled. "Dead. The sickness took them. Mama and Papa both. And then they made me leave. Said I was cursed. Something twisted in Takoda's chest. Cursed? He repeated softly. Yes, I know about cursed. Are you cursed too? The question was so direct, so innocent, that Takoda almost smiled. Yes, very cursed. Everyone I love dies. So I love no one now. Safer that way. That sounds lonely. Lonely better than dead. Lily considered this, then looked down at her hands. I don't want to be alone anymore. It's too hard. Takoda knew he should leave now, before this conversation went any further. But he found himself sitting down on a rock facing her, keeping a respectful distance. You have food? A little. Some bread and cheese from the town. And $10. $10 not last long. You know how find water? Make fire? Hunt? Lily shook her head to all three questions. Then you die in 3 days. Maybe 4 if lucky. I know, Lily whispered. But I don't know what else to do. There's nowhere for me to go. Takoda was silent for a long moment. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to walk away. This wasn't his problem. He owed this girl nothing. Getting involved would only bring pain. It always did. But he kept seeing her face when she talked about being alone. Kept hearing the echo of his own words from years ago, spoken to Grey Wolf. I don't want to be alone anymore. You stay here tonight, he finally said. Tomorrow I bring food, show you where water is. Then you go east to Santa Fe. Maybe find work there, find family. Will you take me there? No, I take you nowhere. I show you how survive, then you go. He stood up. Sleep now? I come back when sun rises. Wait! Lily called out as he started to leave. What's your name? He paused, considering whether to answer. Names had power. Giving his name meant acknowledging a connection, however small. But he found himself answering anyway. Takoda. I'm Lily, Lily Morgan. Sleep, Lily Morgan. Long day tomorrow. He melted back into the shadows, and within seconds it was as if he'd never been there. Lily stared at the spot where he'd been, then slowly lay back down. For the first time since her mother died, she didn't feel quite so alone. Maybe, she thought as her eyes grew heavy, being cursed wasn't the worst thing in the world. Not if it meant meeting someone who understood. True to his word, Takoda appeared at dawn. Lily had barely slept, jolting awake at every sound, half convinced that the Apache man had been a dream, or that he'd come back to kill her in the night. But when the first rays of sun painted the desert pink and gold, she heard the soft crunch of footsteps, and there he was. He carried a dead rabbit and a leather water skin. Without a word, he started gathering dried brush and building a small fire with practiced efficiency. Lily watched in fascination as he produced a piece of flint and steel, striking sparks until the tinder caught. Watch, he said simply. I show once. You remember. For the next hour, Takoda taught Lily how to skin and prepare the rabbit. His hands moved with sure, economical motions, wasting nothing. He showed her which parts to eat, which to save, which to discard. When the meat was roasting over the fire, he turned his attention to the water skin. Water, most important, he said. No water, 3 days you die. Maybe less in desert heat. He pointed to a cluster of cottonwood trees in the distance. Trees mean water below ground. Also, watch animals at dusk. They go to water. You follow, but careful. Predators also follow. Lily absorbed every word, her young mind desperate for anything that might keep her alive. Takoda's English was broken, his grammar uncertain, but his meaning was always clear. He spoke slowly, making sure she understood before moving on. You make fire now, he said, kicking dirt over their small blaze and handing her the flint and steel. Lily's first attempts were clumsy. The steel kept slipping from her small fingers, and when she did manage to strike sparks, they died before reaching the tinder. She tried again and again, her frustration growing with each failure. Can't you just do it? She finally asked, her voice wavering. I can, but I not be here tomorrow or next day. You must learn. His voice was hard but not unkind. In desert you learn or you die. No middle choice. Lily set her jaw and tried again. This time a spark caught, and a tiny flame flickered to life. She looked up at Takoda with such pure joy that he almost smiled. Good, he said. Now bigger fire. Need enough to last night? They worked through the morning, and Lily learned more about survival in those few hours than she'd learned in her entire life in town. Takoda showed her how to identify poisonous plants, how to find north by the sun's position, how to tell if water was safe to drink. He taught her to walk on rocks instead of sand, to avoid leaving tracks, how to stay low when crossing open ground, how to listen to the desert's subtle warnings. "Why are you helping me?" Lily asked as they ate the rabbit meat. It was tough and gamey, but she was hungry enough that it tasted delicious. Takoda was quiet for a long time. "Someone helped me once," he finally said, "when my people cast me out. Old warrior, he showed me how to survive alone. I asked him why he help. He say, because no one else will. Your people cast you out too." He nodded. "Long time ago, 15 winters. Do you miss them?" "Every day." The admission seemed to surprise him. "But missing not change anything. Past is past. What did you do? To make them cast you out?" Takoda's face darkened. "I live while others die. That my crime. My wife, my child not born yet, they die from fever. I live. People say I cursed, I bring death. Maybe they right." Lily thought about this. "My mama and papa died from the sickness too. But I didn't make them sick. The wagon driver brought it. Pete from Santa Fe. Does not matter what true. Matters what people believe." He stood up, brushing dirt from his pants. "You rest now. Tonight I teach you about stars, how they show way when sun goes down. Are you going to leave me?" The question burst out before Lily could stop it. Takoda looked at her for a long moment. "Yes, maybe 2, 3 days. Show you what you need, then you go your way, I go mine. Can't I come with you? I'll work hard, I promise. I can learn. I won't be any trouble. No." The word was final. "I walk alone." That how it must be, but even as he said it, something in his chest tightened. The girl looked at him with those wide green eyes, and he saw himself in her. Saw the desperate hope of someone who'd lost everything, clinging to the first kindness shown to them. He turned away before she could see the conflict on his face. "Rest," he repeated and walked off into the desert. Lily watched him go, then lay down in the shade of the rocks. Her body ached, her feet were covered in blisters, and her heart felt like a stone in her chest. But for the first time since her mother died, she felt a small spark of something that might have been hope. Over the next 3 days, Takoda kept his distance emotionally, even as he taught Lily everything he could about survival. He showed her how to make a shelter from brush and rocks, how to set snares for rabbits, how to find grubs and roots that were safe to eat. He taught her basic words in Apache: water, food, danger, run, and made her practice until she could say them without thinking. But he never let her get too close. When she tried to talk about her parents, he changed the subject. When she laughed at something, a lizard doing push-ups on a rock, trying to look tough, and he almost smiled, he immediately schooled his features back to blankness. When she fell asleep by the fire and unconsciously moved closer to him for warmth, he got up and moved to the other side. On the 3rd evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, Lily finally confronted him. "Why won't you let me care about you?" she asked. Takoda looked up from the bow he was carving for her. "What you mean?" "Every time I try to talk to you, really talk, not just about survival stuff, you go all quiet and angry. Every time I smile at you, you look away. Why? Not your concern. You're teaching me all this stuff, spending all this time with me, but you won't even be my friend. I don't understand." Takoda set down the bow and fixed her with a hard stare. "You want to understand? I tell you, everyone I ever care about dies. My mother, father, sister, dead. My wife, my child, dead. Grey wolf who teach me, dead, everyone. So I decide no more caring, no more loving. Safer that way. Safer for who?" "For them." "For you." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My mama used to say that living without love is like being dead anyway. She said love is what makes us human, even when it hurts." "Your mama dead," Takoda said bluntly. The words hit Lily like a slap. Tears sprang to her eyes, and she turned away so he wouldn't see. But Takoda had already seen, and something in him recoiled at the pain he'd caused. He struggled for words. "I not mean, that come out wrong." "No, you're right," Lily said, her voice thick with tears. "She is dead, and my papa's dead. And everyone I ever loved is gone, just like you. So maybe we're both cursed, both dead inside. But at least I'm trying to still be human. At least I'm not giving up." She grabbed her blanket and moved to the far side of their small camp, curling up with her back to him. Takoda sat in the firelight, feeling like he'd just kicked a wounded animal. The worst part was, she was right. He had given up. Had decided years ago that it was easier to be dead inside than to risk feeling anything. He looked at the small figure wrapped in the blanket, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs, and felt something crack inside him. This girl had lost everything, and she was still trying, still fighting to feel, to hope, to be human. When had he stopped fighting? Takoda stood up and walked over to where Lily lay. He sat down a respectful distance away and cleared his throat awkwardly. "Your mama," he said quietly. "She sound like wise woman." Lily didn't turn around, but her crying quieted. "My wife," Takoda continued, "she say something similar. She say, 'Takoda, you so afraid of being hurt, you forget how to be happy.' I not understand then. But maybe she right. Maybe you mama right too." Slowly Lily turned to face him. Her face was tear-streaked and red, but there was something in her eyes, understanding maybe, or forgiveness. "I not good at this," Takoda said. "Being friend, being close to people. Been alone long time. But you brave girl, Lily Morgan. You stronger than me in ways that matter." "I don't feel strong," Lily whispered. "I feel scared all the time. Brave not mean not scared. Brave means scared, but try anyway." A small smile tugged at Lily's lips. "Did your wife tell you that too?" "No, that from Grey Wolf." For the first time, Takoda's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. He full of wise sayings, sometimes annoying, always right. Lily giggled, and the sound was so unexpected, so pure, that Takoda felt something in his chest loosen. When was the last time he'd made someone laugh? When was the last time he'd wanted to? "Can I ask you something?" Lily said, "Maybe I answer. Maybe not. If you're so cursed and everyone you care about dies, aren't you worried I'll die too? If you care about me?" The question hit Takoda like an arrow to the heart. Because yes, that was exactly what he was worried about. That was why he'd been keeping his distance, why he was planning to send her away in another day or two. If he didn't care, she couldn't hurt him. If he didn't care, her death wouldn't be on his hands. But looking at her now, he realized with dawning horror that it was already too late. Despite his best efforts, despite all his walls and defenses, he did care. This small, brave, broken girl had slipped past his guard and made him feel something again. "Yes," he finally said. "I worry. So what are you going to do?" Takoda stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. He could send her away, give her supplies and directions to Santa Fe, and hope for the best. It's what he'd planned from the beginning. The smart thing, the safe thing, or he could do something incredibly stupid. "I'm not decided yet," he said. "But tonight you sleep. Tomorrow we talk more." Lily nodded and lay back down, but this time she didn't turn away from him. She looked at him across the fire, and Takoda found himself unable to look away. "Thank you," she said softly, "for teaching me, for helping me, for not leaving me to die. Sleep now, little one." As Lily's eyes drifted closed, Takoda stayed awake, staring at the stars and wrestling with a decision that terrified him more than any physical danger ever had. He'd survived alone for 15 years. He'd convinced himself he preferred it that way, but sitting here in the firelight, listening to Lily's soft breathing, feeling less alone than he had in years. Maybe survival wasn't the same thing as living. Maybe his wife and Grey Wolf had been right all along. Morning came with the harsh cry of a hawk circling overhead. Takoda had barely slept, his mind churning with possibilities and consequences. When Lily woke, she found him already up, checking the snares they'd set the night before. "We caught one," she said excitedly, seeing a rabbit in the trap. Takoda nodded. "You do it! Show me you remember." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she approached the snare, but she did everything he taught her, quick, clean, merciful. When she was done, she looked up at him with pride shining in her eyes. "Good," Takoda said. And then, before he could stop himself, "You learn fast," they prepared breakfast in companionable silence. The awkwardness from the night before had eased somewhat, replaced by something Takoda couldn't quite name. Partnership, maybe, or the beginnings of trust. After they ate, Takoda sat down across from her, his face serious. "I tell you truth now," he said. "You cannot go to Santa Fe alone. Too far, too dangerous. You die before you get there." Lily's face fell. "But you said—" "I know what I say." "I wrong." The admission cost him, but he pushed forward. "You have 3 choices. When I take you to Santa Fe myself, leave you with sisters at mission. They take orphans, give food and shelter. You'll be safe. What's the second choice? 2, I take you to Mexican village 3 days south. Family there owe me favor. They might take you, raise you as their own. And the third choice." Takoda was quiet for a long moment. This was it, the moment he either kept his walls up or let them crumble completely. 3, you stay with me. I teach you everything I know. You live as I live, moving, hiding, always on edge. Hard life, lonely life. But you survive." Lily's eyes widened. "You mean it? You'd let me stay. Not let is your choice. But you must understand what you choose." His voice grew harder, more intense. "People see you with APache, they hate you too. You become outcasts like me. Never have normal life. Never have friends, never belong anywhere. Town people shoot at us, maybe try to kill us. You ready for that?" "I'm already an outcast," Lily said quietly. "They already threw me away. That different. That temporary. People forget, move on. But you stay with me, you marked forever." Lily looked down at her hands, thinking hard. Takoda watched her, surprised to find himself hoping she'd choose to stay. When had that happened? When had this girl become something more than just a burden to be dealt with? "Can I ask you something?" Lily said finally. "Yes. If I stay, would you teach me how to not be so afraid all the time?" Takoda felt something twist in his chest. "I'm still afraid sometimes," he admitted. "Fear keep you alive. But I teach you how to be afraid and still do what must be done. How to be brave. And would you be my family? Even if we're not blood?" The question hung in the air between them. Family. Takoda hadn't had family in 15 years. Hadn't wanted family, because family meant attachment, and attachment meant pain. But looking at this brave, broken girl who was asking for so little, just a place to belong, someone to care, he found he couldn't say no. "Yes," he said, his voice rough. "I be your family. You be mine. We protect each other, teach each other, keep each other alive. That what family means in the desert." Lily's face broke into the first real smile he'd seen from her. She jumped up, and before Takoda could react, threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. Takoda froze. Physical affection was something he'd forgotten, something he'd trained himself not to need. But Lily's small arms around him, her face pressed against his chest. Her absolute trust, it broke something in him that had been frozen for years. Slowly, carefully, he brought his arms up and hugged her back. "Thank you," Lily whispered. "Thank you for not leaving me alone." "Thank you," Takoda said, surprising himself, "for making me remember how to be human." They stayed like that for a long moment. 2 lost souls finding harbor in each other. Then Takoda gently pulled back, uncomfortable with the emotion flooding through him. "Enough soft words," he said gruffly. "You stay with me, you work. Many things to learn. First, we move camp. Been here too long, not safe. Where are we going?" "North, into mountains. I have winter camp there, Hidden Canyon. Takes 3 days walking. You strong enough?" Lily straightened her shoulders. "I'm strong enough. Good. Then we pack now, leave in 1 hour. And Lily?" "Yes? From now on you call me Takoda. Not APache, not Savage, not any other name. Just Takoda. And I call you Lily. We equal partners now. Understood?" "Understood." As they broke camp and gathered their meager supplies, Takoda felt lighter than he had in years. He was probably making a terrible mistake. This girl would slow him down, make him vulnerable, possibly get them both killed. Everything he'd learned about survival told him to walk away. But for the first time in 15 years, survival didn't seem like enough. Living, really living, with someone to care about and someone who cared about him, that seemed worth the risk. They set out north as the sun climbed higher, Lily walking beside Takoda with a determined stride despite her still healing blisters. She didn't complain, didn't ask for rest, just kept putting one foot in front of the other. "You do good," Takoda said after the first mile. "But save your energy. Long walk ahead." "I can make it," Lily insisted. "I know you can. But smart person, not push too hard too fast. We rest every 2 hours, drink water, check for danger. That how you survive long journey." They fell into an easy rhythm. Walk, rest, walk, rest. During the rest periods, Takoda taught her more survival skills. How to read tracks in the dirt, how to tell direction by the wind, how to make herself small and invisible when danger approached. Lily absorbed everything like a sponge, asking smart questions and practicing until she got it right. By the time they made camp that first night, Takoda was exhausted but oddly content. Having someone to teach, someone to talk to, made the hours pass differently. He'd forgotten what it was like to share the burden of existence with another person. "Tomorrow harder," he warned as they ate dinner. "We climb into hills, rocky terrain, but after that, easier." "I'll be ready," Lily said confidently. Then more, hesitantly, "Takoda, can I ask about your wife? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." Takoda stiffened. He'd avoided thinking about Ayana for years, pushed her memory deep down where it couldn't hurt him. But Lily's eyes were curious, not cruel. She genuinely wanted to know. "Her name, Ayana," he said finally. "Mean eternal blossom. She beautiful, kind, strong. I love her since we children." His voice grew distant, lost in memory. "We marry when I 20, she 18. Happy time. She carry my child. We talk about future, about raising family together." What happened? Fever came to camp. Strange fever, not like others before. Make people hot, make them see things not there. Ayana gets sick. I try everything, medicine, herbs, cool water, prayers. Nothing work. She die in my arms, baby die with her. I hold her and I scream, but no one come help. They afraid of fever. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. After she die, other people get sick. Many die, but not me. I never even feel bad. People start to whisper, why Takoda live when everyone else die? What did he do? Maybe he bring fever, maybe he cursed. Fear turned to anger, anger turned to blame. But you didn't do anything wrong. Truth not matter when people scared. They need someone to blame, I convenient target. They drive me out, tell me never come back. Say if I show face again, they kill me." "That's horrible," Lily whispered. "That 15 years ago, long time, but feel like yesterday sometimes." Takoda poked at the fire with a stick. "I swear after that, never care about anyone again. Hurt too much when they die. Safer to be alone." "But you're not alone anymore," Lily said softly. "You have me now." Takoda looked at her across the firelight. This small girl who'd lost as much as he had, but somehow still had hope. "Yes, I have you, and you have me. Maybe we both cursed, but we cursed together. Maybe that make it better." "It does make it better," Lily said firmly. "Everything's better when you're not alone." They talked late into the night, trading stories about their lost families, their fears, their hopes for the future. It was the first real conversation Takoda had had in years, and he found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. Lily, in turn, told him about her parents, about life in Redemption Creek, about the small joys and big sorrows of her short life. When they finally slept, they did so on opposite sides of the fire, but the distance felt different now. Not the gap between strangers, but the comfortable space between family. The next 2 days tested them both. The terrain grew rougher, the climbing harder. Lily's blisters reopened and bled, but she gritted her teeth and kept going. Takoda watched her carefully, ready to carry her if necessary, but the girl's determination was fierce. She wouldn't give up. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, they crested a rise, and Takoda pointed down into a hidden canyon. "There," he said. "My winter camp." Lily looked down at the canyon with wonder. It was beautiful. Green with cottonwoods, a stream running through the middle, walls of red rock rising on either side. Hidden, protected, perfect. "It's amazing," she breathed. "Come, I show you home." They descended into the canyon, and Takoda led her to a small cave carved into the rock face. Inside it was dry and surprisingly spacious, with signs of long habitation, a fire ring, storage areas carved into the walls, even some basic furniture made from branches and hide. "You stay here long time," Lily observed. "5 winters. Longest I stay anywhere since before." Takoda began unpacking their supplies. "Tomorrow we work on making better shelter for you, getting ready for winter. But tonight we rest. You earn it." As darkness fell and they sat by the fire inside the cave, Lily felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died. Safe. Not just physically safe, though Takoda's presence certainly helped with that, but emotionally safe. Like she could finally stop running, stop fighting, stop being afraid every single second. "Takoda," she said sleepily. "Yes, thank you for choosing me, for letting me be your family." Takoda looked at the girl curled up in her blanket, her eyes already closing. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for choosing me too." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Takoda sat watch, his mind clearer than it had been in years. He'd spent 15 years running from connection, from caring, from the possibility of being hurt again. He'd survived, yes, but survival alone wasn't living. This girl, this brave, broken, beautiful girl, had reminded him what it meant to live, what it meant to have something worth protecting, someone worth caring about. He'd tried so hard to stay dead inside, but Lily had brought him back to life. And yes, there was danger in that. Yes, she could die, could leave him alone again, could break his heart the way Ayana's death had broken it. But for the first time in 15 years, Takoda found he didn't care about the risk. Some things were worth the pain. Some people were worth the fear of losing them. Lily was one of those people. As the fire burned low and the stars wheeled overhead, Takoda made a silent promise to the girl sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. "I will protect you. I will teach you. I will be the family you lost, and if the curse comes for you, it will have to go through me first." It wasn't much, but it was all he had to give. It would have to be enough. 3 months passed in the hidden canyon, and they were the most peaceful months either Takoda or Lily had known in years. Winter came gently to their sheltered haven, bringing cold nights, but also a sense of timelessness, as if the rest of the world had forgotten they existed. Lily grew stronger, more capable. Her hands, once soft from town living, became calloused and sure. She could track a rabbit through the brush, start a fire in under a minute, and move through the forest without making a sound. More importantly, she smiled again. Real smiles that reached her eyes, that spoke of healing happening deep inside. Takoda changed too, though he fought it at first. The hard edges that had defined him for so long began to soften. He caught himself laughing at Lily's jokes, telling her stories from his childhood, even singing old Apache songs while they worked. The ghost was becoming human again, but the past has a way of finding you, no matter how well you hide. It was a bright morning in late winter when everything changed. Takoda had gone hunting, leaving Lily to gather firewood near the camp. He returned to find her standing frozen at the canyon entrance, staring at something in the distance. "What wrong?" he asked, immediately alert. "Smoke," Lily whispered, pointing. "Lots of smoke. Coming from where Redemption Creek is." Takoda looked and felt his stomach drop. The smoke was black and thick, the kind that came from buildings burning. Something bad was happening in the town that had cast Lily out. "Not our problem," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, they felt hollow. "But people are dying," Lily said. "We have to help. They not help you when you need them. Why you help them now?" Lily turned to face him, and her eyes held a wisdom far beyond her 10 years. Because that's what makes us different from them. We don't abandon people, even when they abandon us. Takoda wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons why going to Redemption Creek was foolish and dangerous. But he saw the determination in Lily's face and knew she was right. They'd spent 3 months learning to be human again. Walking away from people in need would undo all of that. "We go look," he finally said. "But careful. We see what happened, then decide if we help. Agreed?" Agreed. They packed quickly, water, weapons, medical supplies. As they made their way toward town, Takoda's instincts screamed warnings. Every step closer felt like a step toward disaster. But Lily walked beside him with quiet courage, and he couldn't bring himself to turn back. They approached Redemption Creek from the east, staying in the cover of rocks and brush. What they found made even Takoda's hardened heart clench. The town was under attack. Not by Apache, not by bandits, but by Craddock's men. The same men Takoda had seen bearing evidence months ago. They were burning homes, driving people into the street, shooting anyone who resisted. Why? Lily breathed. Why would they do this? Takoda's eyes narrowed as he watched the scene. Then he saw Craddock himself, standing in the town square with a group of armed men. The wealthy rancher was reading from a document, his voice carrying across the chaos. "Hereby claim all land and properties as payment for debts owed. Any who resist will be considered outlaws and dealt with accordingly." "He taking their land," Takoda said quietly, "using fear and violence to steal what not his." They watched as families were dragged from their homes, as the general store went up in flames. As Sheriff Daniels, the same man who'd cast Lily out, tried to stop Craddock's men and was struck down with a rifle butt. "We have to do something," Lily said desperately. "What?" "We 2 people against 20 armed men. We die and nothing change. Then we'll die trying." Lily's voice broke. "I know they threw me away. I know they didn't care about me. But there are children down there, Takoda. Children who didn't do anything wrong. We can't just watch them suffer." Takoda looked at the girl beside him, this child who'd been shown the worst of humanity and somehow still chose kindness. She was right, and he knew it. But he also knew what helping would cost them. "If we help," he said slowly, "we can never hide again. Everyone know we here, know we alive. Craddock's men hunt us forever. We lose our peace, our safety, everything." "I know," Lily said. "But some things are more important than being safe." Takoda felt something shift inside him. He'd spent 15 years choosing safety over everything else, over love, over connection, over doing what was right. And where had it gotten him? Alone in a cave, more dead than alive, surviving but not living. Lily had taught him there was another way. Now she was asking him to prove he'd learned the lesson. "Okay," he said. "We help, but smart, not stupid. We not save everyone, too many, too spread out. We pick who we save and we get them out. Understood?" Lily nodded, her face fierce with determination. Takoda studied the town, his tactical mind working. "Church," he said, pointing to the stone building at the far end of town. "Craddock's men not burn it yet. Stone don't burn easy. If we get people there, they have defensible position. How do we get them there? We create distraction." A cold smile crossed Takoda's face. "I know these men, remember? I see them bury Craddock's evidence. They see me, they chase me. While they chase, you lead people to church." "No." Lily grabbed his arm. "That's too dangerous. They'll kill you." "Maybe, maybe not. I survived long time by being hard to kill." He looked down at her seriously. "You strong now, Lily? Strong enough to do this without me? If something happen, if I not come back, you go to Miller's Crossing, tell Jacob Miller what happened here. He know people who can help. Can you do that?" Tears streamed down Lily's face. "I don't want to lose you, too." Takoda pulled her into a fierce hug. "I not plan on dying today. But if I do, you remember, you not cursed, you not bad luck. You brave, strong, good person. What happened to your parents, to me, not your fault. You live, Lily, you live full life, you hear me? Only if you promise to live, too." "I promise to try." He pulled back and wiped her tears with his thumb. "Now we go. Stay low, move fast. When you see Craddock's men chase me, you run to people, lead them to church. Use back alleys, stay hidden, go." They split up, Takoda moving east while Lily circled west. His heart hammered. not with fear for himself but with terror for her. If anything happened to Lily, if his plan got her killed, no, he couldn't think like that. She was smart, capable. She'd survive. Takoda positioned himself behind a burning building and took a deep breath. Then he stood up in full view of Craddock's men and shouted in Apache. The effect was immediate. Men spun around, rifles coming up. Takoda saw recognition on some faces. The same men from the canyon, the ones who'd been burying evidence. "It's him," one shouted. "The Apache who saw us." "Kill him!" Craddock roared. "I want him dead!" Takoda turned and ran, making just enough noise to ensure they'd follow. Bullets whined past his head, splintering wood and kicking up dirt. He dodged between buildings, his knowledge of the terrain giving him an edge. He needed to lead them away from the town center, give Lily time to work. Behind him, he heard the thunder of horses, the shouts of angry men. Good. The more who chased him, the fewer who threatened the townspeople. He led them on a winding chase through the outskirts of town, always staying just ahead, always visible enough to keep their attention. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't slow down. He'd run from danger before, but never toward purpose. Never for someone he loved. Loved. The word struck him like lightning. Somewhere in the past 3 months, Lily had become more than just a responsibility, more than a partner. She'd become his daughter in all the ways that mattered. And he'd die before he let anything happen to her. Meanwhile, Lily was moving through the chaos like a ghost. She found the Henderson family huddled in their burning store and led them out through the back. She found old Mrs. Chen hiding in a barrel and pulled her free. One by one, family by family, she gathered the survivors and pointed them toward the church. "Lily," Mrs. Henderson stared at her in shock. "But you're supposed to be dead." "Not dead, and neither are you if you move now. Go to the church, bar the doors. You'll be safe there. But how, no time, go." They went, stumbling through the smoke, children crying, adults too shocked to argue. Lily moved like Takoda had taught her, quick, quiet, always aware. She could hear gunfire in the distance, knew Takoda was still running, still drawing danger away. "Please be okay," she prayed. "Please don't die for me." She found Sheriff Daniels bleeding in the street and helped him to his feet. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You," he gasped. "The Morgan girl, can you walk?" "I think so, but—" "Then walk church now." By the time Craddock realized what was happening, over 30 people had made it to the church. Lily helped them bar the heavy wooden doors, just as the first of Craddock's men arrived. "Open up," someone shouted, pounding on the door. "Open up or we burn you out." "The church is stone," Sheriff Daniels called back, his voice stronger now. "You can't burn stone. And there are witnesses here, witnesses to everything you've done." "Kill us and you'll hang for murder." There was silence, then angry muttering. Lily pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear. Had they left? Were they regrouping? Then a new sound, hoofbeats, lots of them coming from the east. Lily's heart sank. Reinforcements for Craddock. They were doomed. But when she peeked through a crack in the door, she saw something that made her gasp. It wasn't reinforcements for Craddock. It was the U.S. Marshal from Santa Fe, along with 20 armed deputies, Vincent Craddock. The Marshal's voice boomed. "You and your men are under arrest for theft, arson, attempted murder, and conspiracy to defraud." Lily watched through the crack as everything fell apart for Craddock. His men, seeing the law arrive in force, threw down their weapons. Craddock himself tried to run, but was quickly tackled and bound. How did they know to come? Someone in the church whispered. "Jacob Miller," Sheriff Daniels said with growing understanding. "He must have sent word when he heard about the attacks. That old man saved us all." But Lily wasn't listening. She was scanning the street desperately, looking for one face among the chaos. Where was Takoda? Why hadn't he come back? "I have to go," she said, moving toward the door. "Wait." Mrs. Henderson grabbed her arm. "It's not safe yet." "I have to find him." Lily wrenched free and slipped out before anyone could stop her. She ran through the town, calling Takoda's name, her heart pounding with fear. What if he was hurt? What if he was dying somewhere, alone, thinking she'd abandoned him. She found him at the edge of town, collapsed against a wall. Blood stained his side where a bullet had grazed him. His breathing was labored, his face pale. But when he saw her, he smiled. "You did it," he breathed. "You saved them." "We saved them," Lily corrected, dropping to her knees beside him. Together, Lily, his hand found hers. "I keep my promise. I live. You better keep living," she said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "Because I'm not done needing you yet. I'm never going to be done needing you." Takoda's eyes filled with tears, the first tears he'd shed in 15 years. "I love you, little one. You know that? You, my family, my daughter, everything. I love you too, Takoda. You're my papa now. The best papa I could have asked for." They stayed like that, holding each other, until the marshal and his men found them. There was a tense moment when the deputies raised their rifles, seeing an Apache and assuming danger. But Sheriff Daniels, limping over with Mrs. Henderson and others from the town, set them straight. "That man saved us," Daniels said firmly. "Him and the girl. They risked everything when they didn't have to. His voice broke, when we threw her away like garbage. And still they came back to help." The marshal looked between Takoda and Lily, understanding dawning. "I see. Well then, looks like we owe you folks a debt of gratitude." A year later, the hidden canyon looked different. Where once there had been only a cave and a fire pit, now there stood a small cabin, rough but sturdy, built with lumber donated by the grateful people of Redemption Creek. Smoke rose from a proper chimney, and a vegetable garden grew in the sunny spot near the stream. Lily, now 11, sat on the porch reading from a book, one of several that had been gifts from the town. She was learning to read properly now, not just the basics her mother had taught her. Mrs. Henderson came once a week to tutor her, making the long ride without complaint. Takoda emerged from the cabin, moving a bit slower than he used to. The bullet wound had healed, but it had reminded him he wasn't as young as he once was. He carried 2 tin cups of coffee and handed one to Lily. "How's the lesson going?" he asked in English that had improved dramatically over the past year. "Good. I'm almost done with this chapter." Lily set the book aside and accepted the coffee gratefully. "Mrs. Henderson says I'm reading at a 7th grade level now." Smart girl. "I always know that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the afternoon sun paint the canyon walls gold. Life was different now. They still lived apart from the town, still maintained their privacy and independence. But they weren't outcasts anymore. They weren't ghosts. The town had changed too. With Craddock in prison and his corrupt empire dismantled, new leadership had emerged. Sheriff Daniels had stepped down, recommending a younger, fairer man to take his place. The people of Redemption Creek had learned a hard lesson about fear and scapegoating, and they were trying, slowly, imperfectly, to be better. Some townspeople still avoided Takoda, still carried old prejudices, but others greeted him with respect when he came to trade. Children waved to him and Lily when they passed. "It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, Takoda," Lily said quietly. "Do you ever regret it? Taking me in, I mean." He looked at her with surprise. "Never, not one day." "Why you ask?" I know your life was simpler before me, quieter. You didn't have to worry about anyone but yourself." Takoda set down his coffee and took Lily's hand. "My life before you, not simpler. It was emptier. I survive, yes, but I not live. You teach me difference. You give me reason to wake up each morning, reason to hope, reason to be better man." "You taught me too," Lily said, squeezing his hand. "You taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stays when things get hard, who chooses you even when they don't have to." "We choose each other," Takoda agreed. "That day in the desert we both choose. And I choose you every day since, Lily, every single day." Lily leaned against his shoulder, and Takoda wrapped his arm around her. They sat like that as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. From the canyon entrance came the sound of a horse. They both tensed instinctively. Old habits died hard, but relaxed when they saw it was Sheriff Daniels. "Afternoon," he called, dismounting. "Hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Takoda called back. "You want coffee?" Never say no to coffee. Daniels climbed the porch and accepted a cup. I come bearing news. The territorial judge finally made his ruling on the Craddock properties. Takoda and Lily exchanged glances. The legal proceedings had been dragging on for months, sorting out who owned what after Craddock's crimes were exposed. And, Lily prompted, and the judge ruled that since you two were instrumental in bringing Craddock to justice, you're entitled to a reward. There's a piece of land, this land actually, this whole canyon and the area around it, that was disputed territory. The judge has awarded it to you both. Free and clear, Takoda stared at him. You mean, this our land now, legal? Legal as it gets. You own it. No one can force you off. No one can take it from you. It's yours, Daniel smiled. Thought you'd want to know you're not squatting anymore. You're homesteaders. Lily looked up at Takoda, her eyes shining. We have a home. A real home. Yes, Takoda said, his voice thick with emotion. We have home. After Daniels left, they sat together watching the stars come out. Lily thought about everything that had happened. Losing her parents, being cast out, nearly dying in the desert. Meeting Takoda. Learning to survive, to trust, to love again. Mama was right, she said softly. About what? She said love is what makes us human, even when it hurts. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Takoda nodded slowly. My wife say something too. She say I so afraid of hurt, I forget how to be happy. For a long time, she right. But not anymore. Are you happy now? Lily asked. Takoda looked at the girl beside him, this brave, beautiful soul who'd wandered into his life and changed everything. He thought about the cabin they'd built together, the land they now owned, the community that was slowly learning to accept them. He thought about mornings spent teaching Lily to track, and evenings spent learning to read alongside her. He thought about laughter and tears and all the messy, wonderful, terrifying parts of loving someone. Yes, he said simply. I happy now. More happy than I think possible. Me too, Lily whispered. Even though I miss Mama and Papa every day, even though I still have nightmares sometimes, I'm happy too, because I have you. Because I'm not alone. Never alone, Takoda promised. Not anymore. We have each other and that enough. That more than enough. As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, Takoda began to sing, softly, in APache, an old song his mother had taught him about family and belonging. Lily didn't understand all the words, but she understood the feeling. She understood that this moment, right here, was what healing looked like. Two people who'd lost everything, who'd been cast out and called cursed, who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. Two people who'd found each other in the loneliest corners of the world and built something beautiful from their shared brokenness. They weren't cursed after all. They were blessed, blessed to have found each other, blessed to have survived, blessed to have learned that love, real love, was worth any risk. The ghost of the borderlands was gone, laid to rest at last. In his place was simply Takoda, a man with a daughter, a home and a future that no longer terrified him. And Lily, the orphan girl who'd seen something in a lonely APache that no one else could see, had found what she'd been searching for all along, a place to belong, someone to love. And the knowledge that she was worthy of love in return. In the hidden canyon, under a blanket of stars, they were finally truly home.